Hello everyone, I'm Adante Benjamin and this is Mindfully Aligned, a high vibrational space where we level up our perspectives and conquer life head on. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. As you can see, I am on video, which is super crazy. I told you last week that I am working actively on leveling up the podcast and I'm delivering, and there's a bunch of stuff coming that I'm so excited for you guys to see. I love that you guys are my early listeners. Thank you so much for rocking with me. I hope you're super excited for all the things that are in store for the podcast because it's gonna be dope. Before we kick things off, be sure to like this episode, save it, leave a review, and all the things to show Mindfully Aligned some love. And now that that's out the way, let's get into the episode. Today, I want to talk about the sore subject of failure. I know. We all know the sting of failure, whether it's missing a big opportunity or struggling with setbacks. But what if I told you that failure could be the key to your biggest opportunity, your biggest breakthrough? That's exactly what happened to Ben Goodwin and David Luster, the founders of Olipop. Yes, today's episode is about failure and overcoming failure, but it's also about Olipop and the story of Olipop because I find the story to be very inspiring. One thing I like is, and if you guys are audio only, that sound was the actual Olipop can swirling around. But one thing I like to do is listen to stories of highly successful people and see what their path was like. It can really put things into perspective as we go about our own journeys, you know? We may encounter things that may seem like the biggest stumbling block, the biggest hurdle, yet we have no idea that it's a universal experience or a universal setback that all people who are about to accomplish something great go through. So if you are not familiar with Olipop, Olipop is a healthy alternative soda brand that offers probiotics and 9 grams of fiber to benefit your gut health with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar. The company was founded in 2017, but there was a whole lot that happened before that allowed the founders to produce the Olipop that we know and enjoy today. Some of their investors include Gwyneth Paltrow, Mindy Kaling, Camila Cabello, and the Jonas Brothers, and there's so much more. So obviously they have done a lot of work to get to this point, and I really want to dive in. They built Olipop from the ground up, and they turned failure into a multi-million-dollar business. Here's how they did it. So the founder, Ben Goodman, or the co-founder, started by being in a completely different career, and then in 2005 he decided to switch over into a career in nutrition. This really was because he was inspired by a book by the Cliff Bar founder. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how it's so important to find people who inspire you and listen to their stories. If he didn't pick up that book to inspire himself, who knows if he would have even decided to take that jump and switch careers that led him into being the CEO of Olipop. It's crazy to think about, and that is why I'm presenting this story to you guys, because hopefully this can inspire you too and give you the kind of fire within yourself or answer whatever your calling is. And hopefully it inspires you to push through your next failure. Anyways, David Luster, the other co-founder, worked at a spirit company and quit after 10 years. So both of them left their backgrounds, the easy way, the easy path, and they became partners and founded Obi, a probiotic soda with a different formula. However, it was not successful and they had to sell the company. Imagine putting everything into a company only to watch it fall apart. It would have been easy to walk away, but Ben and David saw their failure as a lesson rather than defeat. They took everything that they learned from Obi and used it to formulate a new healthy soda. They figured, okay, I know that this previous idea didn't work, I know it didn't sell well, but we are passionate about this project and we stand behind it. We put a lot on the line. Why would we give up now? In fact, in interviews, they literally said that their prior venture inspired them to continue. They didn't take it as a sign that nobody cared about what they were doing and that they should quit. They viewed it from the positive. Okay, we had some traction, we need to keep going, some people like this, some people bought it. We may not have gotten the entire reception that we would have wanted, but we know that this is something that matters deep down inside, and we have to continue. We owe it to ourselves. There are people out there that want this product, we just have to perfect it. In another interview, David Lester said, "I felt like it would be a wasted experience if we didn't put into practice all that we learned. We just kind of started out again and the excitement returned." Now, excitement is a key word here. Yes, of course, when we hear rejection or we experience failure, it's gonna knock you down a little bit, and it might temporarily diminish your love for that thing. However, identify that feeling and know that if this is something that you're meant to do, that feeling will come back, just as theirs did. They literally built up a whole company, watched it crumble, had to be forced to sell it, and they still were like, okay, let's get this excitement back, let's get this groove back, because it's not over. And that's the mentality we all should have in our daily lives. They didn't let it become a wasted experience. They took the $100,000 from the sale of Obi and used it to start their new company, Olipop. They literally capitalized on their failure. They could have easily taken that $100,000 and ran and done something else, put in their retirement fund, I don't know, invested in something else. But they literally used, I think that's so crazy, they used the money from the sale of their failure to propel their dreams. It was the same dream. They just remodeled it. So they spent the next 2 years perfecting the new formula. Do you think that in those 2 years of experimenting, they ran into stumbling blocks? 100%. But trial and error is also a major key to success. There was no other product like it on the market, and when it came to meeting with investors, they heard a lot of no's at first, which is something we all are going to hear. If you're applying for a job, if you're just doing anything that requires you to put yourself out there in life, you are going to hear no's. It's just part of the journey. In their case, they were told it's a stupid idea. But Ben and David knew that there was a need for their product. They didn't let the fact that it hadn't been done before stop them. They persisted, they pushed, and they got their funding, including from the celebrities I listed at the top of the episode. They went from begging to be sold in stores to being sold in only 40 stores to now being sold in over 30,000 stores across the country. I mean, that's crazy. And I like to think back to that spot they must have been when they were quote unquote in the trenches. That's what I call the really early phases of your journey where you are just grinding it out and you're not seeing a ton of results or a ton of validation yet. It's just that period of starting things where it's just tough. When they were in those boardrooms pitching Olipop and people told them it was stupid and they weren't going to get any funding, they didn't know that down the line they were going to have Gwyneth Paltrow and the Jonas Brothers investing in them. Rejection is redirection. That is a major key. Sometimes we don't realize that this may mean that there is something bigger for us down the line, like in their case. That reminds me of this quote by Shirley Chisholm, who was the first Black woman in Congress. She said, "If you're not invited to the table, bring your own chair." There also is a variation of that says if you're always getting told no, you're probably in the wrong room. And that is also a big thing to remember. You know, we're at this phase in our lives where we have to put ourselves out there. We have to apply for jobs. We have to go to networking events. We have to speak to people. Because we're young and up and coming, it's easy to get discouraged by all the little no's or the ghostings or any other thing that we run into along the way. For example, again, the biggest one is applying for jobs. I know a lot of us are doing that. If you run into rejection or just straight up no answer, which it's gonna happen, that just means it was not the right position. Don't tell yourself that you were not right for it. David and Ben didn't tell themselves that their idea wasn't good. They just thought, okay, this is a great idea. We know it is. And okay, we just need to improve it. The same thing goes to us. As we inevitably run into these stumbling blocks, we have to just think, okay, that position may not have been for me. That opportunity may not have been for me. And a lot of times down the line, we learn something that made us realize that it never would have worked. It wouldn't have been a good fit anyway. And that rejection was really a blessing in disguise. You know, I'm sure those investors who rejected them early on in the process felt real stupid when they see all these celebrities pooling in and getting in on this amazing new product and seeing how it's taken over the market. That same kind of belief and conviction is the same that you need to have for yourself, especially in the face of defeat. So all in all, Ben and David went from their original company that they were forced to sell to using that failure to propel their next venture which they actually struggled with. They went from begging investors for a chance and begging retailers to put them on shelves to now having their company bring in over $500 million in sales this year. Remember, they only started in 2017, which I think is incredible. You know, if they took their first failure, their first disappointment, and gave up that soon, they never would have made that $500 million in this year alone. First of all, crazy. I just hope that that puts it into perspective for all of us, really. So here's what you can take away from Ben and David's story. Trust your vision, use failure as feedback, and keep going even when the road gets tough. A failure doesn't mean you're not good enough or you're not worthy. It just means that you need to reroute and go down different avenues. You have to be willing to learn and adapt. You can't take your failures personally or your rejection or your mistakes personally. The most successful people know how to take it on the chin and keep pushing. If you are applying to jobs or you're pitching something at work and you face rejection, if you let it hurt you and dig at you deep inside every single time, there's going to be nothing left. You have to move through life with a deep conviction that is unshakable, to the point where nothing anyone could say could change your mind that what you're doing has value. Ben and David took the failure of their first company not as a sign that what they're doing wasn't valuable or that there was no room at the table, but they used it as fuel to just keep going. You have to ignore the no's and trust that you are on the path to greatness. Remember, failure is your friend. It opens the doors to new opportunities. It is a necessary part of success that helps you grow and innovate. If you take a second to imagine yourself where you want to be, having achieved that goal, that thing that you are trying to get, you got that job, you worked your way to the top of that company, that person was able to do those things because of the lessons they learned from the times that they failed, because the lessons they learned from those mistakes. That final version of you that you want to become can't happen without those mistakes, failures, rejections, and letdowns along the way. It's all a part of the journey, and we just kind of have to embrace it as our friend. If you trust that failure will lead you to your ultimate greatness, it will. And that's pretty much the big idea of the week. This was inspired by just me being an Olipop enjoyer. And one day I was like, you know what? How did this company come out of nowhere? You know, I heard this quote that said that overnight successes really have 4 to 5 years of hard work. You know, you have pop stars like Chappell Rowan, who seems like an overnight success, but she has really been grinding out for so many years. Same with Olipop. It seems like all of a sudden last year or 2 years ago, Olipop was everywhere. But this company really started back with Ben leaving his company in 2005 and all the things that happened in between. So if you are just starting out on something and you are not liking the results so far, that's because you're in the early stages, and that takes a long time, and we have to have patience for that and know that when a door slams in our face, it's really because there's something bigger on the horizon, and we have to keep going. We owe it to ourselves to keep going. So before we close out today's episode, you guys know it's now time for the song of the week. So this week we have two songs of the week. The first one is Stronger by Kanye West. Always a good one. You know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's the chorus in the song. How could you forget it? And of course, Survivor by Destiny's Child. I don't know how many Beyonce or Destiny's Child songs that we have in here at this point, but I'm a fan. I don't know what to tell you guys, okay? You're just gonna have to listen. I especially love Survivor. That's a song I listen to, I would run to, and I would just think about all the chips on my shoulder, all the things that pissed me off in the past, all the things I had to overcome, and that just really got the fire going within me. So I love this song, obviously. But these two songs are great motivators to remind you that even though we're gonna encounter hardships along the way, it's just part of the process, and you truly draw strength from it. I can think back to any time that I have encountered something that temporarily knocked me down. I wouldn't be the person I am before you guys today without those experiences. As much as they sucked, as much as they hurt, I needed that to be who I am now and be the person who can even make this podcast. So yeah, again, the songs of the week are Stronger by Kanye West and Survivor by Destiny's Child. Yeah, so that's the episode of the week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, rate the podcast, save it, share it with a friend, and of course, make sure to follow the Mindfully Aligned podcast on Instagram. And let me know what else you guys want to hear on the podcast. Again, I'm so happy to give you guys video, and I'm so excited for you guys to see how this podcast is going to continue to grow. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Bye.